Welcome, everyone. If I forget, I want to wish everyone a very happy holiday season. We do have a quorum, so the first order of business would be approval of the November 18th, 2020 minutes. If we had an opportunity to review those minutes, and are there any changes or modifications needed?
Chair, I would like to add that I had omitted Brian Slade from the minutes, and we can go ahead and add him. There's Kedrick. So we can add Brian Slade to those minutes as an edit.
I've got a mad one in the background. Sorry about that. So with that said, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? A motion by Sarah Lynn.
Second.
And I have a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm flipping back and forth here. 109 report, I believe, is next on the agenda. Is that you, Pete?
Yes, sir. We've only had one meeting. It was a special meeting since this committee met last, and with a specific purpose of allocating $280,000 to assist Louisville Metro government in securing $1.1 million in grant funds to place up to 28,000 recycling carts in the Urban Services District so that we can help move to every other week recycling. And with the intent that over the next 2 years, we will continue to strive to place recycling carts at all residences in the Urban Services District. So the two grants were from CERDIC, which is the Southeast Recycling Development Council, and that grant is for $350,000. And the grant from the Recycling Partnership, who most of you know we've been working with for quite some time. And I believe that their grant will be for $721,000. We are in a very good position to get those grants, but we just needed that $280,000, which the board approved at their last meeting. So we was very grateful and happy that we was able to get those funds. So that was really the only thing that's taken place with the 109 board. I can answer any questions if anybody has them.
Pete, I do have some questions, and I didn't feel it was my place during the board meeting to ask. But are those containers, do they have different lid colors on them? How are they differentiated from the normal waste container?
For the Department of Public Works, they designate them as an orange top lid. It's a black container with an orange top lid, although you will see some fully orange containers. And those were at one point designated for businesses. It was a way for us to understand which was a business and which was a resident.
Okay, and then my second question, when it was presented to Metro Council, did they understand clearly that we had at risk roughly $800,000 in grants or $1 million in grants if we couldn't come up with 280 out of Metro Council?
Could you repeat the question? I dropped out just a little bit during part of it.
Okay, and I apologize once again. It's my youngest granddaughter, so I'm very proud of her, but she is quite loud. Was it clearly explained to Metro Council that the grant that we were awarded was dependent upon 280 from them, and we would gain approximately 1 million from the grant, and they still declined?
Well, from a Metro Council point of view, they have not been presented these grants. It was on their legislative agenda to approve them, but we have not went in front of the Metro Council yet to talk about the grants. What the Metro Council had approved in error was that the $280,000 would come from the Waste District budget to fund a pilot in one recycling area for $280,000. So that's what their intent was when they did it, although they did it in error, taking it from the Waste District budget because obviously the Waste District has control of those funds. And that's one of the reasons why we ultimately went before the board to ask for those funds. So they was not aware. They're not aware at this point. They may be, they may be aware, but it's not, it hasn't been discussed at a Metro Council committee or a Metro Council meeting.
Obviously, I just feel as if we've, as a 109 board, as you were on this call, from a 109 board perspective, we funded a lot of things that either should be budgeted through solid waste or funded by Metro Council or, the city, if you will. And, COVID issue and whatnot, and reduction of waste being generated at restaurants, it's, we're going to have an impact on fee revenue. So that was just part of my concern.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Sarah Lynn, you're not coming through. You're not on mute, but I cannot hear you. No, still can't hear you. Does anybody read lips?
Sarah Lynn, type it into
Type it
the.
in. Yeah, I was gonna say type it in. We'll read it. We'll read it for everybody if we need to, Sarah Lynn.
It's going to be in the bottom right-hand corner, Sarah Lynn, chat.
By the way, hi everybody. Sorry, I'm late. Can everybody hear?
Yep. Hey, Greg. Are the roll carts made of recycled plastic? If they're solid orange, no. That it's because you can't make orange out of recycled material. So the black carts, yes, they do have as much of a recycled content as they can have. Keith might be able to answer that a little bit better because I think that there's a percentage.
Yeah. Yes, that was part of our contract. 25% has to be. We went as far as we can go. Make sure it kept the integrity, wear and tear. So 25% on the black carts, and those with the carts that we're getting are black carts with orange lids.
I think that explains the muddy color right on to the recycled content. Any other questions? Okay.
What were we talking about? The cars?
Yeah, recycle carts for the Urban Services District. The board approved $280,000 to put against over $1 million of grant funds to get 28,000 carts for the Urban Services District, with the intent of pushing for all of those houses in the urban services district to get carts over the next 3 years. And that'll help us go to every other week recycling.
Pete, on the every other week recycling, is that going to be for good, just for COVID? Is that a permanent move?
We hope that it would be a permanent move. I think that this has actually been discussed the last couple of budget cycles with Metro Council with the intent of trying to save money, which I do believe it will. It's but the big drawback on it was that, when you have 18-gallon bins and you go to every other week, unless you have the capacity, you're going to have people putting their recycling into the regular trash. They just don't have the volume. So this will help us be able to do that.
This will also affect yard waste too. So both services, because they are, 95% of them are done on the same day. We would go every other week with both services, that recycling and yard waste. And it not only will save us money, but also help us, logistically. It'll help us in staffing, so that when we do have staffing issues, it won't be so detrimental, and it will really lower overtime overall. And of course, that'll help our safety and the wear and tear on our equipment as well as our staffing.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think part of the rollout on this, as part of the requirement for the grant, there has to be a certain amount of education that is done at the same time. And we have to have a campaign to help people understand the every other week collection system and then what we're doing in it. We're coupling this with the Recycle Right program, which I'm not sure if everybody has kind of heard of, but it's something that Karen can give a brief description of. Sorry to put you on the spot, Karen, but just to let people know that, one of the biggest concerns there are when you go to carts is that your contamination increases. So we're going to be trying to work with that. So Karen, can you tell people about the Recycle Right program?
Yeah, so far we have a pilot area that we've been working in the Deer Park neighborhood, and it's a pretty small little couple of blocks. Right now, well, we did a materials audit to kind of look at the material that was collected on a day, and then we have gone through and tagged bins twice. Technically, a good tagging happened twice, and we are giving we're looking for particular contaminants. So styrofoam, bagged recyclables, plastic shopping bags, not as common, but yard waste is on there, large items, entanglers, things like that. So if anything has that material, we give them an oops tag. And then on the other side, it shows what the problem was. And on the other side, it has what we want people to recycle and how to prepare them. So and then if they have it all right, then they get a green tag that says way to know. And it also shows the correct way to recycle if they wanted to save it and put it on their fridge or something. So it's been pretty interesting. Just I don't have a full report yet, but it has been interesting just to look at the change from one tagging event and then 2 weeks later looking at the next tagging event and seeing improvement. So we can look at the data all sorts of ways. We're using survey 123 as we go through for each address and marking the carts versus bins that they have, and then if they got a way to know tag or if they did have a contaminant, what was it? There are red tags that are where we tell our crews not to collect if there's a red tag. But so far, we've only had one container. it appears to have been sitting there for a long time. So I don't think they were really trying to recycle multiple times, but it was full of concrete, like bricks and woody waste. So anyway, that red tag means we don't even want that in the truck at all. The other stuff is kind of non-detrimental, but we're trying to improve it. So that's the goal. We want to get it to be a bigger program, but for now we're just doing these. We have 3 small areas picked out. We're going to wait till it gets warmer again to do the next couple of neighborhoods. But Deer Park was chosen because they already have high participation, and we felt like it would be a good start to figure out the logistics of the way we're going to do things. And then we have an area picked out in the South Side neighborhood with a high international community that will help us figure out some challenges we might encounter with language barriers. And then the Shawnee area is where carts were originally piloted several years ago, and there are lots of carts still there not being used properly. And so we think that would be a good area to also use as a pilot. So does anyone have any questions about that?
Karen, did you
We're
say
going to have 28, I'm sorry, Pete, but my question is, are we going to have 28,000 18-gallon bins come back?
are we gonna ask them to return them?
Are we going to return 28,000 bins?
I don't know the answer to that, Bruce. It's a good question, something that we need to
No.
talk about.
We can, but initially it's no, because they can do what they want to with them. I mean, we don't have a return policy on anything. And the initial discussion was no. But if they want us to come pick them up, we can pick them up, because we can always use for other stuff. So that's to be determined. Like you said, it's talked about, but initially no. But if that becomes an issue, then we have a mechanism in place that we can collect those for those who want to collect it, and we'll just do something else with it. I mean, I hate to say it, but some of them might be halfway torn up anyway, but it might be getting back to us for us just to recycle them, if they're in usable shape. But initially, no, but we'll definitely make it a priority to discuss it. And if that be the case, we can go pick them up just like we deliver them if people request it.
Can we check with our vendor on those to see if they would take those back as a recycled commodity?
And the answer is yes. Yes, we give them stuff back all the time.
Okay.
And would there be a way, because I know we probably have more than 28,000 total, people that recycle in the urban services district. So I know 28,000 carts is not going to do everything. So would there be a way to recover those carts or the bins and then try to get those back out to people and get more people, into recycling if we can give them back out for free? I know,
Well, we've been doing audits to find out where people are recycling, and we haven't gotten the final numbers on how many are, but we had to have the addresses of where these were so we can deliver carts. To be able to bring those back in and to give those back out as free, I'm hoping that by the time that we get through this first round, we're not going to be too far delayed from the second round. I hope. So we would rather not give out the bins unless we have to, because they are a litter issue as much as anything else. So trying to get the carts out in the next cycle would be better. And we're going to try to hit, the areas where we feel like that we can get the most participation, I think, but we haven't really talked about that. Sarah Lynn is raising a finger.
I logged out and logged back in. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. Is it worth considering sending everybody a postcard that says, if you'd like a roll cart, call this number, so that the people who want them get them and they can go further, as opposed to do it every single address where there are people who just don't care one way or the other and they aren't participating really.
If I understand you, you're talking about in the second and third phase of the rollout.
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of the thing that the recycling partnership and with the grant is that we need to cart everything, and they feel like that through their experience in doing this throughout the country, and they've done 750,000 carts in many different communities. And what they have found that by blanketing them, and I agree that you're going to get some people that just aren't going to use them. But that is one of the ways that they drive that participation, because if they have to call in, some people just don't do it.
Yeah. I was hoping to exploit the fear of missing out thing, FOMO. But
Well,
I think that's a good argument.
I think that honestly, I think when we throw out the carts in the first round, there will be a lot of people calling saying, hey, can I get one? We've had that happen in the past. And it's funny that if you go and you look, if you have one person get a cart, and this was when people can buy carts, and they still can, but when you get one cart placed upon a street, the next thing you know, you get 2 to 3 people calling and asking for a cart. And that's that peer pressure type thing. So if you can have a street that'll have 10 people on it, and then the next street over, nobody, until you get that first cart on it, and then people start to order.
Makes sense.
Any other questions?
I've got all kind of them if you have time for me. Is your vendor delivering the carts, or is the solid waste district delivering the carts?
As part of the grant, we have calculated in a little bit of a discount on the carts, but it also includes the delivery. So we're getting the delivery and the carts in the one fell swoop. It'll be distributed by the same people that have our cart maintenance contract, but as separate of that contract.
No, will they keep track of the serial numbers by address?
They will.
Good.
Whether or not the carts will stay at those households is a really good question. Particularly when you have alleys, the carts they move around a lot.
I'm trying to think, is there any way that we can identify the participants by serial number, if there's any type of barcode on the cart or whatnot that we could somehow scan, as we're picking them up to gauge participation?
We've talked about before, because all carts actually are manufactured now with an RFID tag inside of the handle. It's a matter of having the readers on your trucks, and we have definitely discussed doing that. I think that we piloted it multiple years ago. I'm not sure that the technology was quite ready at that time, but it's definitely one of the goals that we have. Tracking wherever we lift a cart, and that cart number is something that we would love to be able to do. It's just not something that we have on the drawing board. It's one of our hopes to do, though.
Yeah, and
I told
Bruce,
y'all about that.
Oh, to further on that question, Bruce, because I did quite a bit of research on that, and it's pretty cost prohibitive to install a system like that due to the number of carts that Louisville Metro already has out that don't have the RFID tags in them. So retrofitting those was going to be pretty expensive. Plus, the equipment on all of the trucks, because you can never guarantee the same truck's going to run the route, week to week. So you have to put it on all the trucks, even if it's. So we were looking at, like a phased rollout, and it was going to be $3 or $4 million to get all the carts up to snuff with the RFID tags in them. We get all the trucks retrofitted to be able to read them.
Thank you, Kedrick.
Yep. I think it's been 3 or 4 years. I think it's been 5 years that we have already had the reads installed. And so we might be in better shape than we think we are based on what you did several years ago. But we started that like 5 to 7 years ago. Just go ahead and put them in there just in case we decide to change. Anticipate that because it didn't cost us much more. So when we do go to that, we'll be able to go there with a good foundation, of having quite a few cards already in the system with the RFID tags.
I have a question. Is the tags does it do more than just track where the carts are? So I was wondering, what is the information? Because we develop a system for the tolling for the bridges that we have over. We develop a system and we reviewed a number of other systems. And so everything from some really simple systems to obviously some really complicated ones. I'm just wondering, according to what all the information you want to gain or gather based off of your systems. So I'm just curious, what all information are we reading from the tags?
I will let Keith handle that one. I know that it can do quite a bit more, I believe.
Initially, Mr. Brady, to your question, it was just location, address, helping us to keep up with them, keep an inventory. But you can also put readers, for how many cans how many times it flips. You can read that. You can go as far as, making a part of a breadcrumb along with GPS to see what can was done, when it was done, and how many cans it was done. So that's where we kind of go on. The first phase was just to at least track them as far as addresses are concerned. And then we will go a little further with, GPS breadcrumbs with the trucks, with the routes to ensure somebody calls and says, "Oh, you didn't do mine." We can go and look on our computer and say, "Yes, we did. We did at 3:43. Your address was done at 3:43 p.m. It was serviced, or we were by there." So to your point, we weren't gonna get into the weight part of it, try to weigh these things. To me, that doesn't help us at all. But to know where they are and how many cans each vehicle services, those are good stats and good information that helps us in the long run. So that's where we're going if we decide to get there. And I assure you that, of course, division will make that. That investment, that capital investment in technology, because that's where we are. The next thing is to get to the technology, and we're positioned, but we're not practicing it at this point.
Thank you.
Sarah Lynn?
Thank you. The Germans have found that when people get feedback on how they're doing compared to themselves and to their neighbors, it really inspires them to be much more thoughtful recyclers. And I agree with Keith that we couldn't do it citywide. But if Karen and her crew could use that RFID and scales just periodically in test neighborhoods and give people feedback, it could have the same inspiration to pay better attention.
Are you comparing us to Germans?
Well, I know that's a bit of a stretch. But we got a fair number of German American citizens.
I think that's similar to what you might find in an LG&E letter report. And they
took it out, but yes.
Yeah, and I remember seeing those, and I agree. And as you said that, it made me think that as we do our Recycle Right program, we can even go as vague as how many people are participating, which could be something to share to a neighborhood, to their social media or their community to say, hey, only 43% of this community is recycling, or maybe we're saying, hey, 80% of your recycling, and kind of what happens with that.
We watched a documentary recently on KET. It was a PBS thing where they did this academic study to find out what would get people to use less energy to help the environment. And they gave them 4 messages. It's going to save you money. It's going to help the environment. It's going to leave a better world to your children and grandchildren. And they all had about the same impact on behavior. But the message that your neighbors are doing this is what got many more people to participate. So it seems silly, but if it works, I'm all for it.
I find it very interesting how this conversation has evolved, because my initial concern was return on investment. And if we were able to track out of the $280,000 we approved, how much of that's getting utilized, and how much of it's getting used as a Rubbermaid cart to store couch cushions in, or lawn furniture cushions in, or something like that.
Yeah.
And if they're not getting utilized, we could redeploy them somewhere else. So, thank you.
Good.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Can people hear me?
Can right now.
I sent to the chat. Are the carts distributed to the out access stand?
They're assigned to a property. They remain the property of the government. And just like any other private waste hauler, it is that hauler's property. And it's just assigned to that address until, with a private hauler, until they change, if they change. And in Metro, it's basically assigned there. People do take them with them, and that's a big problem.
People know that they'll be less likely to do it, but they may do it.
Right. One of the things that complicates that for us is that people have purchased a lot of carts. So how do you tell which one's a purchased cart versus a Metro cart? So it's a little bit of a difficult.
We're giving this to you. If we're giving it to people who bought it, it's theirs, right?
I think it's a good point, and it should be part of our educational information when we drop off the cart.
People
Oh yeah, there are more.
I've had arguments with people. They say, "No, this is mine." And so it's hard.
Right.
Maybe the carts aren't made, correct? We can have them made. They have to have special Social Security numbers on them. Maybe we could put an emoji on it to indicate that it was for the program or whatever, because they mold stamp that on there. Or just a special little sign that we would recognize. Nobody knows it has a Social Security number on there or a year date or anything.
Well, generally when in the past, when carts were delivered, they had a mass delivered. There was a tag that went with it with a serial number. And we always tell people to keep track of your serial number, because what happens when your neighbor comes over and takes your cart, you know which one's yours. So we try to tell people that, and we try to explain to them why that serial number is important. But to be able to tag, I think we get into real difficulty in changing the mold of the cart to add certain things for certain distribution. It makes it logistically difficult to keep track of them that way if they're different. The cart lid, the lid changing color is one thing that we can change easily. We can change a lid pretty easily, but we can't change the body if it's got an emoji or something like that on it very easy.
is Rarig your vendor or toter?
It is auto.
Rarig will actually track the serial number by address when they deliver. And so I don't know what your vendor will do. And then they report, and we can enter the cart serial number to the account number.
Right. We keep a database. Whenever they do that, we have a database with every cart that's been put out with the serial number and what goes to that property. The problem is, I mean, in some areas, you can have 100 households if it's in an alley area, and 70% of them could be at the wrong property. You know, these carts have been out there for, 10, 15, 20 years in some cases. So these carts are just totally, I mean, in certain areas, your assignment to that household is almost useless.
I frequently see containers that people have put addresses on and they're in the wrong, but that even though they've written on them, they don't line up to where the container actually is.
It's true.
But for the people who purchase the containers, that I think possibly changing that lingo, I think when you have the purchase name attached to something as well, you do think you own it versus maybe a delivery or cart fee or
Yeah.
the people who will have to purchase them in addition to this 28,000.
Any other questions about the cards or the program? Hearing none. Pete, you want to carry on with the next item on the agenda?
Well, I believe the next item on the agenda is choosing a chair. And if we could, I don't know if we wrote it on the agenda, but a chair and a vice chair for the advisory committee, and then a chair and a vice chair for each of the subcommittees is what we really need to do if we could.
We spoke of this at the last brief meeting we had, and had asked that we come back with some recommendations. Has anybody thought that through? And is there any recommendations? You want to start with chair?
This is Matt. Sorry. There he is.
This is Matt. I recommend Bruce.
We're talking about the full committee, right?
Yes, sir.
This is Brian. Pete, I would second that.
Okay, so, okay.
Well, are there any other recommendations that anyone wants to make?
Well, I wondered if you were agreeable to it. That seems like a reasonable question.
I've always been honored to be
okay.
To help out the way I can. Good. So thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion necessary? I think we can do this. I guess all in favor, raise your hand, please. Any opposed? I was going to say, you didn't get a Christmas card. With that, I guess the motion carries. Thank you very much, and I'm honored to continue to serve as chair.
We're lucky to have you, Bruce.
Thank you.
The next item then, I guess, Pete would be the vice chair.
Yes, sir.
Most of our video, if they're not able to vote, a lot of people need to turn on.
Good point.
Oh, thank you. There may have been a lot. Maybe I lost my job and we didn't see it. Well, then we'll do a verbal this time. Do we want to go back and redo the last vote, Craig?
I'm okay with it.
All right, with the vice chair then, Dwight. All right, thank you. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Kat, are you willing?
We have, I think Sarah Lynn then are you making a motion for Kedrick?
Yeah, that was kind of sloppy. I nominate Ken, please.
Second. I have a second by Mr. Stallard. Thank you. Any additional discussion needed? Let's do this verbally this time with those that are their video are off. All in favor of Kedrick serving as vice chair? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Was that opposed or in favor, Greg?
Pardon? Yes.
Okay. And again, were there any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried unanimously. Congratulations, Kedrick. Got that Unicorn Cornelius going on again this year.
I have the quarantine beard this year.
Now, as we're talking about the subcommittees next, correct, Pete?
Yes, sir. And what I will do is pull up can everyone see that slide?
Yes.
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 Okay, so this is the residential and construction and demolition committees as they were set up when the before COVID. So if we're okay with these committees still, then and I believe that when we set it up, we tried to make it to where it was balanced between industry, environmental, and citizens, and certain expertise. So this is the first committee. So I would think that we need to be able to pick a chair and a vice chair for these committees.
Did just the people that are on that committee vote?
I think this can be a vote of the entire committee. I would nominate Sandra, if you're willing, and to serve as chair of the committee that's currently on the screen. Would you be willing to serve in that capacity?
Yes.
I'll second.
I'd second
I'll
that.
second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any other discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing. Sandra, thank you very much. You're the chair of the first subcommittee. And looking at these subcommittees, Pete, there are 7 members on, are there 7 on each subcommittee?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, sir.
So we'll need 4 for a quorum, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So did we want to go ahead and get a vice chair?
Absolutely. Do we have any nominations for vice chair for the first committee or first subcommittee?
Marie, are you willing? Okay. Okay.
That really wasn't a vote of, hey, I'm excited.
We said yes. Yeah.
I don't really know what it's all about, but that's fine. Try.
Yeah, you just have to be willing to chair when Sandra can't. You know, you don't have to be an expert.
All right.
All right, we have a motion, or is that a motion in, Sarah Lynn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion for Marie to vice chair. And do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stallard, thank you. Any other discussion needed? Hearing none. All in favor of Marie F. being the vice chair? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much, Marie.
Okay.
All right, I guess we're moving on to the next subcommittee, Pete.
Yes, sir. Okay, this
My
next
first two
subcommittee.
names aren't hyphenated.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I've probably been doing that a long time, Sarah Lynn.
You have, but it's okay. I know I'm loved. So Greg, you had talked about being willing to chair this. Are you still?
Yes.
Then I nominate Greg.
Second.
We have a nomination of Greg for chair, and was that you, Pat? Was a second?
Yes, it was.
Pat Stallard for a second. So I have a motion for Greg Zarandek as chair, and a second by Pat Stallard. Any additional discussion required? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate your willingness. Now we have to do a vice chair. And
I nominate Brian Slade.
Matt Smith, that was you, right?
Yes, sir.
Matt Smith has made a nomination of Brian Slade as vice chair.
I'll
And
second. I'll second that.
and that came from Pat, or was,
Yes.
Yes.
okay, Pat, thank you. And we have a motion and a second by Mr. Stallard. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, do we have any opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Mr. Slade, hopefully you're willing, appreciate your willingness to serve.
Certainly.
Okay, Pete, we've got chairs and vice chairs for both subcommittees.
Well, at this point, I feel like that we've set our feet squarely on the ground to get running again. And I would think that at this point, you know, our discussion can center on when we need to meet, when each committee when the committees are going to meet. We can do them virtually at the moment, so a place is not necessary. So a time and a place. I'm not sure if right now is the best time to do that because we don't have all of our committee members. But that's something that we'll be reaching out. We'll be assigning staff to these subcommittees again. And again, before we had this broken down into education, enforcement contracts and so on. We've changed these up a little bit. So education was coming up in both all the time. So Karen and her team will definitely be involved in both of these committees. So we don't have that wondering what somebody is going to do in the education committee when we're talking about these functions. So we feel like that this is going to work a little bit better. What else? I mean, at this point, I really don't have anything else to discuss unless somebody wants to discuss the proposals and what they see as being important and moving forward. I do know one thing. We need the participation of the committee members so that we're not running into quorum issues again. So really think hard when we go to set a meeting time and date that it's something that you can commit to and will do your best to attend. So just keep that in mind.
Pete, my concern is if we wait until we have 100% attendance on the advisory committee to set the next meeting date, we may not meet for another couple of years. So I hate to throw a little sarcasm in there. But
a suggestion?
Yes.
Could staff go to the advisory committee members who haven't made this or the last meeting and find out if, for example, they're doing NTI or they have some other reason that's going to preclude their participation for a bit, and also ask, is there a different time that might help them to participate? Because some of us are pretty flexible and some of us aren't.
That's a good idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think what we can do is have staff work with each subcommittee, if that's okay. I think it's a good point that, we don't have enough people here to really set those times and dates at this particular time, particularly with everything going on. So we can get staff to do that, if that's okay.
That I would welcome it and appreciate it. Does anyone else have a problem with that? Yes, Pete.
No, I think it's a good idea.
So once we get, hey, Bruce, actually, you're sharing your screen, Bruce. Once we get all that lined out, we can firm it up at the next full committee meeting to officially adopt those times and dates. But would there be any reason that these subcommittees could not meet before our next full committee meeting?
Do you mean before or immediately before, like we were doing?
It depends upon what that committee wants to do.
Right. I mean, I like having them back to back because I only have to knock out one chunk of time per month. And secondly, everybody's memories are fresh when we get back together as the full group about what the subcommittees said.
The only concern that I have is recognizing the challenges that we face in the COVID world.
Totally.
And my thought is if we could have a full advisory committee meeting prior to the first of the subcommittee meetings, we could actually have a consensus on how we're going to evaluate what has changed in the waste or in recycling world, how COVID has impacted the weight of the waste and recycled at the curb, those kind of things in the end markets actually, and then possibly break into our subcommittee meetings immediately prior to the following advisory committee meeting. That's just a thought that
Sounds
I have.
good.
Yeah, it sounds fine.
Good.
You're basically.
No, I'm saying we reconvene as a full committee, and then eventually we will do our subcommittee meetings, right before the next full advisory committee meeting.
Just one note that if we are doing both subcommittees right before the full meeting on that one particular day, it may make us a little bit short on some staff, but I feel pretty confident we can still make it happen.
I wouldn't think it would have to be, the day immediately preceding the meeting date. We could do one subcommittee meeting on a Tuesday and the next on a Wednesday, have an advisory committee meeting on a Thursday, something like that.
Understood.
Going back to what Sarah said, surveying the availability of people to start with makes total sense.
All right, Andrea, thank you very much, because participation is key, and we have to take everybody's other commitments into account when we try to set these meeting dates and times. But are we going to maintain the old schedule on the advisory committee meeting days, Pete?
That is up to you guys. I do not believe that it is set in the bylaws of the Waste District that it has to be on the third Wednesday. I do not believe. Let me look that up real quick.
That would be dumb if we did that. We should take it out.
Well, I know it's that way with the board because it's actually required for them. But,
I think all of it to me before the meetings, but I can't recall him. So I didn't think it was out.
I mean, my concern is, I would love for us to meet back to back, but my concern is whatever's keeping some people from making this meeting probably isn't going to help them to make the subcommittee meeting beforehand.
oh, Karen. Okay, Karen, where we move the bylaws on the website.
What is our percentage? We have
How many people are we missing right now for the?
We've got none. I don't know who Whitney is. Are you a member of the board or staff? I mean, committee or staff?
She's
I'm staff.
Okay, thank you. Wow.
how many?
Actually, and Kim's on, isn't she? But just with voice? Is it Kim? Yeah,
Kim
Kim's
is.
on. So that takes us to 10.
Actually, it is in the bylaws that we have set the date as the third Wednesday of each month from 4:30 to 6.
Wow.
Well, shame on us.
We could, I mean, it's not a problem that we ask the board to change that. It's just a matter of the next board, we can do that.
Yeah.
Well, we just need to find out what we want to do instead if we're going to bother to put it in the bylaws.
Agreed.
For those of the committee members who are on the call, do any of you have a problem with 4:30 to 6? Is it the third Thursday? Is that what it is, Pete?
Third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday, I'm sorry.
No,
I do not.
No problem. I do not.
Pete, would it be possible for staff to send something out to those who are not able to attend tonight, to see if that is going to be agreeable to them. To stick with that third Wednesday at 4:30.
We can do that for the full committee at the same time we're doing for the subcommittee. So that's not a problem at all.
Okay.
I think we might only be missing 2 people right now.
Yeah, it's the way that this is laid out. It's very difficult for me to be able to tell how many we have. 1, 2, 3.
How many all told are we? 14?
14 total.
I'm hearing or
6,
seeing 12 people.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You are correct. I believe we have 12. So we're just missing 2. Marie Burnett. And who else are we missing?
Who does have a school-age child? Marie does.
Mm-hmm.
Could be part of it.
Tim Darst.
Yeah, I don't know what Tim's story is. Yeah.
Yeah, he affirmed that he wanted to still be here. So, yeah, we're only missing those 2.
All right, so we will have staff send out that paper to all committee members to get the consensus then, correct, Pete?
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you. If anyone else has any recommendations for, gaining, 100% attendance, I would greatly appreciate, any thoughts that you have. Because I struggle, and I think we all become frustrated whenever we do break out of our daily lives and commit to time, and then we don't have enough to have a quorum to get something done. So
yeah,
I thank each and every one of you that are in attendance tonight. So I appreciate it.
One suggestion I could make, Bruce, from my own experience getting board members to show up to meetings is, at the first of the year, I send out calendar invites to all the board members for the full year. So it's a placeholder on their calendar, so you don't push a meeting off to next month and then this one pops up, 2 weeks in advance and you're already booked. So I would suggest, Pete, if you could, because it is the third Wednesday of every month, it's a recurring meeting, and that's when it's set to happen. If we could just go ahead and send out 12 calendar invites for the next year, to go ahead and lock in everybody's schedule for this time, that may help free up some people.
I've done that before, and I don't mind doing it. It is it can sometimes get to where when we try to cancel a placeholder, for some reason Outlook really it made it more confusing, and that could have been just difficult for me, not anybody else. So maybe I was looking out for myself a little bit, but it's not a problem. I can go ahead and do that.
Pete, on the memo that you're sending out to everyone, can we reiterate the attendance requirement that is in the bylaws?
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Just a gentle reminder to you guys that are volunteering your time. Committee members, to include subcommittees, can be removed for failure to act. A failure to act is considered failure to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings in a row.
And that's failure to attend without an excused absence, correct? Or does that even reference?
It's not referenced, but I think that that's generally the way that we would view things. I mean, people do have situations that necessitate that, and we don't want to lose good people because of life. But when you cannot make it, what I would request is that you let us know that you can't make it and that excuse. And, I'm not sure if at the beginning of meetings, I say, hey, they couldn't make it because their dog ate their computer. Then do people call that an acceptable excuse? I don't know. So,
First time, not the second.
yeah. So, I'm not sure when it comes into play as when something is an excuse or when it's not such an excuse, but we don't have to bring it up at the meeting. But if somebody misses 3 in a row and we contact them to say, hey, this is an issue, and, at that point, I think that we can handle it.
In the wording that you used from the bylaws, it did say they may be removed if they miss 3 consecutive meetings. Is that correct?
That says can be, which is basically the same thing as may. It does not say will.
So it does leave it open for excuses at that time when they're approached because they've missed 3 meetings. I would really like them kind of put as much weight behind that as possible so that we can actually get things done and accomplished and we don't waste others' time. So if you would just make sure we put that on that mailer as well.
I will, sir.
Any other comments? I have one other item that I want to bring up, Pete, and I don't know that if this is the proper time, but with Mr. Blue's removal from the 109 board, I see he has joined us on this meeting tonight. The thought of expanding the committee by 2 members so that we don't lose his knowledge and background in this effort that we have in the county, the city county government. We would need to have a balanced expansion of the advisory committee. And I would like the committee to think about this prior to the next meeting. And if Mr. Blue's representing industry, then we need someone from the environmental sector to balance out the advisory committee. And if anyone has recommendations, bring those to the next committee meeting. Is that fair to request?
I'll put my thinking cap on and see if I can come up with somebody.
I would like to say, Bruce, that I believe that it actually will play good with our subcommittees because that would give us 8 to still get that quorum of 4, I think. Or would we have to have a quorum of 5 at that point?
5 at that time?
Yeah, it doesn't help us there, but it was a thought.
Nice try.
Does everyone agree that we would like to, if Mr. Blue's willing, that we would like to keep his knowledge on and
I would. Bruce, do you want to stay on?
I would as well.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Good.
Bruce, I see your icon there. Are you muted or are you interested in serving on the advisory committee?
I do believe he gave an affirmative.
Well, we can, just to be sure, we can reach out and ask him. And then if he is willing, then we can make sure we have that balanced committee with other recommendations that we bring forward at the next committee meeting.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else from anyone?
I just want to say I'm glad we're back in working because I enjoy y'all.
Yeah.
I'm just glad to see that everyone appears to be healthy.
Yeah.
And be safe, please, because it's a different world we're living in right now. And it'll be that way for several more months. We just need to be patient and diligent.
I assume we're probably
I believe your comment was we were going to be virtual for the next 6 months. Is that what you-
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think, Greg, that we probably are until we get a little bit further out of this thing. I would anticipate that.
Any other
Well,
questions or comments?
I would like to make a comment that I feel like that of all the time that I've been part of this, the waste district and doing what I've been doing, I think in this past, even with the pandemic and right before the pandemic, I believe the waste district is starting to hit its stride a little bit. We've started to do some good things, and I think that is because the waste district has hired some additional people, and we've had good people that have some great ideas, and like the partnership that we have with Metro government in running the pop-up drop-offs. That is just an awesome service that we're able to give to people all across the county. And the fact that we have our education team really hitting the stride on next door and doing the things that they're doing in the Recycle Right program. And the fact that the district has actually funded material for enforcement, cameras and the like. I just feel like that the district is actually really starting to hit its stride, and we've got lots more ideas. So I just think we got a good team right now. So I appreciate everybody.
Right on.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Do we have anything else on the agenda for this evening, Pete?
No, sir.
Do we have any other comments from anyone on the committee or in attendance? Well, I want to thank everyone for their time this evening. Do you want to go ahead and adjourn now, Pete, or do we have any other issues we need to discuss?
I think we're good.
Hearing that, do I have a motion to adjourn? I'm sorry, what motion?
Greg had a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Greg, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
And that is?
Kim Martinez.
Oh, Kim, there you are.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got one of those phone numbers. Second by Kim. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you all, and all have a very safe, happy, and enjoyable holiday season. Appreciate everyone's time this evening.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you all.
Good job, Bruce. Good job, Pete. Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you all.
We'll see you.
Pete, I don't suppose you could have vaccine at the next subcommittee meetings.
Hang on a second. You're jumping around my screen so much. I have to see your face. What did you say, Pat?
It'd be a great draw to the subcommittee meetings if you could have vaccines there.
Oh, yeah, it probably would. Yes, I think that would make a big impact.
Well, have a good holiday, Pete. Well, thanks for all you do.
All right, Pat, you too. Have a good holiday. Okay, still have Bruce and Jerry. Okay, guys, I'm going to close up shop. You all have a good holiday.